How's it going, Mathaholics? Let's find the slope and the y-intercept of these following equations and graphs. So how exactly do we do that? There's a little formula that we want to put everything into, and I promise if we put everything into this little equation here, the answers are basically going to pop out at us. Alright, so y equals mx plus b. I recommend you write this down. This is called slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. Okay, now a few more things you should write. M stands for slope. Not sure why, but that's just how it is. And then B stands for y-intercept. Okay. Now, how can you remember this until you memorize it? I never had a guy teacher up until this point, so I always associated a teacher with a female, and we don't call our teachers by our first names, but we call them Miss or Mr. whatever the last name is. And here's an M. M stands for slope. M and S go together, so it's like Miss, teacher's name, stuff like that. And then B and the Y, that spells by, and that's just a word. So that's how I remembered it. If that helps you out, feel free to use it. Okay, so now we need to find this slope and this y-intercept. We should see if this equation is already in our slope-intercept form. And by the looks of it, it is. We have a y here, a 2 here, an m here, an x here, a 1 and a b, and you get the point. So based off what we wrote, m stands for slope. So we see an m right over here. And now we don't see any m's in this equation over here. However, knowing that this is already in slope-intercept form, what is in place of the m? We see a 2 where the m belongs. Where the m goes, we see a 2. So we know that that is going to be our slope. Why? M equals slope. Pretty simple. And now we do the same thing for y-intercept. We know that b is y-intercept, so here where the b is, we see a 1. So now we know that our slope is 2, and our y-intercept is 1. Perfect. Now I'm going to delete all this other stuff, so I hope you have it written down, just to make things a little cleaner for us. Okay. Now let's graph. The first thing you want to do when you graph is plot your y-intercept, because that'll make everything else a whole lot easier for you. So let's plot our y-intercept on the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis is this axis over here. Let's go ahead and plot right there. Y-intercept is 1. And now our slope is 2. So how do we do slope again? Rise over run. And I have a video that goes way more into detail on slope, but just to be a little brief with it, we know that we have to rise 2, but how much do we have to run? Do we run 1, 2, 3? No idea. Question, are these numbers any different, 2 and 2 over 1? No. So why don't we write our slope as 2 over 1 instead? Now we're going to go up 2, 1, 2, and over 1, 1. And here's going to be our point. Simple. Now all we do is the exact same thing again. Up 2, 1, 2, over 1. And then we plot our new point right there. And we could keep doing this forever, but because we have other things to do, we're not going to do it forever. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my line there. And there we go. Now we know that our slope is 2. Let me change the line color. And I'll write this down for us. Slope equals 2. Y-intercept equals 1. Simple. Let's move on to the next problem. Now we're given a graph. We're not given any equations or any points. What exactly do we need to do now? Let's always start off with our slope-intercept form. Y equals plus b. M equals what? Very good. I hope you said slope. B equals y-intercept. Perfect. What was the first thing that we plotted on our graph last time? We plotted this y-intercept because it makes everything else a lot easier. So we're going to find our y-intercept first, since this time we're just working backwards. Once again, what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is just wherever this line hits the y-axis over here. We see that in this case, this line hits it at 4. So our y-intercept is just going to be 4. B equals 4. YB, because B stands for y-intercept. And then what else do we need to do? Find our M. Now, how do we find our M? Rise over run, once again. Now, a little side note, let's go up here. We see in this graph, we're going from the bottom to the top. And now in this graph over here, we're going from the top to the bottom. Whenever we're going from top to bottom, how we are in this case, our slope is going to be negative. Every single time, promise, keep that in mind so you don't get the answers wrong. So we know our slope is going to be negative. How do we do this rise over run? We need to find 2 perfect points. That means 4 is a perfect point. We know it's exactly at 4. We can't pick a point right here because we're not sure exactly what that is. So we're going to go from 2 perfect points. I decided let's go with 4 and 2 right over here. And we're going to do rise over run until we figure out what our slope is. So let's go down -1, -2, -3, -4, okay? And now let's start running. 1, 2. So it looks like our slope so far is -4 over 2. Now this can be simplified to -2. So that is our slope. Let's go ahead and erase some of these things just so we can have more room. We know that slope is -2. What letter represents slope? M, there we go. Now we have our B, we have our M, and we know what slope-intercept form is. So why don't we just go ahead and put these numbers into slope-intercept form? Y equals -2x plus 4. And that is our answer. Very simple. Okay, now we have this third problem. Unfortunately, it is not already given to us in, what's it called, in slope-intercept form. So we need to get it into our slope-intercept form. What is this form again? It is y equals mx plus b. How do we do this? So we want to get our y by itself because in this form it is by itself. So we want to copy that. This is the only time it's okay to want to copy something. How do we get rid of, what do we need to get rid of on this side? We need to get rid of this 3x. So let's subtract 3x minus 3x. Now we have -4y equals -3x plus 12. Now, is this y by itself yet? No, it has a -4 bothering us from getting this answer right. So we're going to get rid of that -4. And since these two are together, that means it's multiply, so we have to divide. And I do not have a video on how to do this, but I'll probably make one anyway. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Now we have y by itself equals, what is -3x over -4? Two negatives give us a positive, so that is just 3 over 4x. And then 12 divided by -4, that is just going to give us a -3. So now we have this in our slope-intercept form. I'm going to go ahead and write it off to the side so that we can graph x minus 3, and then I'm going to delete everything on here. Perfect. In the first two examples, what was the first thing that we did every single time that we had to graph something? We started off with our y-intercept. And in case you're not sure why we do that, let me just tell you. So I'm pretty sure we all know that our slope is going to be 3 over 4. Where would we start where would we even start going up 3 over 4? We have no idea. So that is why we need to start with the y-intercept. Let's plot that -3 on here. Perfect. And we're going to go up 3 over 4. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that looks like that's going to be our first point. Perfect. And then I'm not going to be able to go over 4 more, but just to show you, we'd be going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it would be somewhere around here where I'm about to plot. It would be around there. So we're just going to leave it there and insert our line because I don't draw straight lines for whatever reason. There we go. And that is all we have to do. Simple. Now to identify our slope and our y-intercept, since it's already in our slope-intercept form, we know that m is slope, b is y-intercept. We can just say slope equals 3 over 4, y-intercept equals -3. Simple as that, and I hope you learned something.